welcome to the deep dive. So you sent us this news item from April 19th, I think, about something called the CFPB.
That's right, CFPB.
And today, we're going to really dig into what that is, what the CFPB is, and why it's popping up in the news right now.
And it's also a good chance, to maybe pick up some useful English words related to money and government.
Definitely. Think of this as your shortcut to understanding a piece of the U.S. government puzzle, maybe, and how it impacts, well, the financial stuff we all deal with.
Exactly. Should we jump in?
Okay, let's get started. So the article mentioned the CFPB is a U.S. government agency, and it used this analogy, like a watchdog, or maybe a referee for financial companies. What does that mean, just in plain English?
Well, yeah, think about a sports game. You've got the referee around.
Yeah.
Their job is making sure everyone follows the rules, plays fair.
Okay.
The CFPB is sort of like that, but the game is finance, and the players are banks, lenders, those kinds of companies.
And the watchdog part.
Yeah, that fits too. A watchdog, keeps an eye out, watches for trouble. So the CFPB watches these financial companies to, protect people, regular people like us.
Got it. So CFPB, it's an abbreviation, obviously. What do the letters actually stand for?
Yes, it is. CFPB, it stands for Consumer Financial Protection Bureau.
Okay, let's break that down. Consumer, how do you say that again?
Consumer. Kuhn S. Omer.
Kuhn S. Omer.
Right, and a consumer is just, anyone who buys things or uses services. You buy groceries, you're a consumer.
Okay, simple enough. I'm definitely a consumer then. What about financial?
Financial, yeah. It just means anything related to money or how money is managed.
So financial companies are just money companies, banks.
Pretty much. Banks, loan companies, credit card companies, businesses that offer financial services like savings accounts or mortgages.
And then P's for protection, protect.
Exactly. To protect is just to keep safe, right? Keep safe from harm.
So the CFPB protects consumers' finance.
That's the goal. Protect them from, say, unfair fees or misleading practices. Keep their money dealing safe.
And the last letter, B for bureau. That sounds kind of official.
It is. A bureau is usually just an office or a specific department inside a bigger organization.
Like the government.
Exactly. So the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau is the government office specifically focused on keeping consumers safe when they're dealing with financial stuff.
Okay, that makes sense. Now, the article also mentioned something important, that the CFPB was created after the 2008 financial crisis. Why? Why is that significant?
Yeah. The 2008 crisis was a really big deal. The U.S. economy and really the world economy hit some major problems.
I remember that.
And it became clear that some financial companies were, let's say, taking big risks or doing things that ended up hurting ordinary people quite badly.
So the CFPB was a reaction to that.
Exactly. It was created specifically to try and prevent that kind of thing from happening again. To have one agency whose main job was looking out for consumers' financial health, a response to the problems of that time.
Okay, right. That puts it in context. Now let's get to the recent news. The item you shared mentioned layoffs at the CFPB. That sounds not great. What does layoffs mean exactly?
Yeah, layoffs. Pronounce layoffs.
Yeah, layoffs.
It's when a company, or in this case a government agency, tells employees that their jobs are ending, that they don't work there anymore.
And why does that happen usually?
Oh, it can be for different reasons. Sometimes a company is losing money, or maybe it's changing its structure, or maybe its funding gets cut.
And that's what happened at the CFPB. People lost their jobs.
That's what the news report says, yes. That a number of employees at the CFPB were laid off recently.
And the concern mentioned was that this could make it harder for the CFPB to actually do its job to protect consumers.
Yeah.
How so?
Well, think back to the referee idea.
Okay.
If you suddenly have fewer referees on the field, it's easier for players maybe to bend the rules or even break them without getting caught.
Right. Fewer eyes watching.
Exactly. So if the CFPB has fewer staff, they might have less capacity, less ability to do all the things they're supposed to do, like investigating complaints people send in, or writing new rules for banks, or just generally keeping an eye on the market.
Which could mean less protection for us, the consumers.
That's the concern being raised, yeah.
The article also said this whole situation is now being discussed in court. What does that mean? And what's that key word?
The key word there is court, pronounced court.
The court.
A court is, where legal stuff happens, where judges make decisions based on the law.
Right.
So when something's in court, it means there's a formal legal process going on. Lawyers arguing, evidence being presented, trying to sort out a disagreement or decide if something was done legally.
So the layoffs themselves are being challenged, maybe, in court.
That seems to be the case here, yes.
Yeah.
The legality or the effects of these layoffs at the CFPB are being examined by the courts. People are probably arguing about, was this done right? What happens now?
Okay. Now, there was another interesting bit in the news item. It sort of touched on different opinions in the U.S. about, well, how much the government should be involved in things like consumer protection. Can you unpack that a little?
Yeah, that's a bigger picture thing, definitely. It's important to understand that in the U.S., there isn't always agreement on how big a role the government should play in, well, anything, really, but especially the economy.
Okay.
So some people strongly believe that the government needs to have a big role, making rules, enforcing them, actively protecting consumers from bad business practices. They see it as essential.
Right, the protection side.
Exactly. But then there are other people who believe the government should step back more. Less regulation, more freedom for businesses. They might argue that too many rules can slow things down, stifle innovation, or, cost too much.
And the CFPB kind of sits right in the middle of that debate.
Precisely. Because it is a government agency that regulates a major industry finance. So debates about the CFPB, its funding, its power, layoffs, they often connect back to this fundamental disagreement in American politics about the right size and scope of government.
So this specific news story isn't just about layoffs at one agency. It reflects these deeper ongoing arguments.
That's a great way to put it, yeah. This question of how much the government should intervene, how much it should protect, it comes up again and again in different ways. There's no single easy answer everyone agrees on. It's a constant discussion.
So let's point back to our listeners, someone learning English, trying to understand the news. Why is following this story helpful for them?
Oh, it's helpful in a few ways, I think. First, obviously, the vocabulary. You're learning really useful words about money, government, law. Words like consumer, financial, protect, layoffs, court. These come up a lot. Second, it gives you a window into how the U.S. government actually works, or at least some parts of it, and how news about it is reported in English. So you're learning the language, but also learning about the context, about the society.
It's practical learning.
Exactly. You're not just memorizing words, you're seeing how they're used in real situations.
So, wrapping up, what happens next? The article didn't seem sure what might happen with the CFPB.
Well, like the article said, it really is hard to predict right now. A lot hinges on that court decision we mentioned.
Right, the legal process.
Yeah. Depending on what the court decides, it could really change things for the CFPB, how it operates, how many people work there, maybe even what powers it has.
So it could get stronger or weaker or stay the same?
Potentially, yes. Or things might change in ways we can't foresee yet. So for now, honestly, we just have to wait and see how the legal arguments play out.
Okay, well, this has been really insightful. A good look behind the acronym, CFPB, and the news item you shared. It ended with a question for the listener, for you. What do you think about this story? Which is a good prompt.
It is. It encourages you to think it through. And maybe expanding on that a little, think about your own life as a consumer. When you buy things, when you use a bank or maybe get a loan, what does feeling protected actually mean to you?
That's a good question. What does safety feel like in those situations?
Yeah. And maybe also, how do you think big companies or organizations should be held accountable? Who should be watching them? Just some things to ponder.
Definitely food for thought. Well, thank you for joining us for this deep dive into the CFPB.
My pleasure.
We really hope this has made things clearer, helped you understand this piece of news, and maybe added a few useful English words to your vocabulary too.
Thanks for joining today's chat on Your Daily English Spark. If you enjoyed this session and want to keep improving your English, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. What topic would you like us to cover next? Let me know in the comments. And don't miss our next episode, where we'll dive into mastering small talk. See you next time.